Satan is one of the few figures shared by Islam and Christianity, yet the moment you look closely, the resemblance begins to fracture. At first glance, both traditions speak of a being who rebels, who tempts, who stands as the great antagonist to divine will. But beneath this surface similarity lies a profound philosophical divergence, one that reshapes how evil, responsibility, free will, and even God himself are understood. The question is not simply who is Satan, but what role is Satan allowed to play? And more unsettling still, is Satan an enemy operating outside divine authority, or a figure whose existence is inseparable from God's own design? To answer this, we must step into two radically different metaphysical worlds. Christianity, shaped by original sin and cosmic warfare, paints Satan as a fallen angel whose rebellion fractures creation itself. Islam, grounded in strict monotheism and moral accountability, presents Iblis not as a rival power, but as a creature who fails a test and is granted time, not freedom, to prove humanity's weakness. At first, this difference may seem subtle. It is not. It changes everything. And as we move deeper, we will see why these distinctions lead to completely different answers about guilt, temptation, salvation, and the nature of evil itself. But before we reach that point, we must begin at the moment where both traditions claim Satan first said no. In Christianity, Satan's story is inseparable from the idea of a cosmic fall. Though the Bible never presents a single, clean narrative of Satan's origin, Christian theology weaves together passages from Isaiah, Ezekiel, Revelation, and later theological interpretations to construct a dramatic arc. Satan is Lucifer, a high-ranking angel, radiant and powerful, who becomes intoxicated with pride. His sin is not merely disobedience but ambition, wanting to be like God, or even above him. This rebellion triggers a celestial war, culminating in Satan's expulsion from heaven. Evil, in this framework, enters the universe as a rupture. Something that should not exist now does. Satan becomes the ruler of a fallen world, a deceiver with real influence, described in the New Testament as the god of this age. His power is not equal to God's, but it is significant enough to corrupt creation, enslave humanity, and necessitate divine intervention through Christ. This is crucial. In Christianity, Satan is not just a tester or a whisperer. He is an active force of corruption, whose existence helps explain why the world is broken at its core. Human sin, therefore, is not only personal failure but inheritance. Original sin ties humanity's moral condition directly to Satan's earlier rebellion. The battlefield is cosmic, the stakes eternal. Salvation becomes rescue from Satan's dominion, from a fallen nature, from a world under the shadow of an enemy prince. But here an uncomfortable tension emerges, one we will return to later. If Satan's rebellion caused such catastrophic damage, why was it allowed to unfold at all? Islam approaches the same figure from an entirely different angle, and the contrast is jarring. In the Quran, Satan, known as Iblis, is not a fallen angel. Angels in Islam do not rebel. They have no capacity for disobedience. Iblis is instead a jinn, a being created from smokeless fire, possessing free will like humans. His refusal to bow to Adam is not a coup against God, nor an attempt to seize divine authority. It is an act of arrogance rooted in comparison. "I am better than him," Iblis declares. "You created me from fire and created him from clay." This moment is not framed as a cosmic catastrophe, but as a moral failure. There is no war in heaven, no rival kingdom established. God does not lose control, nor is creation fractured. Instead, Iblis is cursed, not because he challenged God's power, but because he rejected God's wisdom. Yet here is where Islam becomes deeply unsettling in its clarity. God grants Iblis a request. He asks for respite until the day of judgment, time to prove that humans are unworthy of the honor they have been given. God allows it, not because he fears Iblis, but because the test serves a purpose. Iblis gains no power to force humans into sin. He can only whisper. He cannot compel, possess, or override human will. The Quran emphasizes this repeatedly. Satan has no authority over humans except through their own consent. Evil, then, is not inherited. There is no original sin. Every soul begins pure. Responsibility is individual, direct, and unavoidable. This raises a disturbing question we will soon confront. If Satan is so limited, why do humans still fall so easily? As these two portraits develop, the philosophical distance between them widens. In Christianity, Satan's role helps externalize evil, The world is broken because something went wrong before humans even arrived. Temptation is powerful because humanity is already wounded. In Islam, this explanation is removed entirely. The world is not fallen. Humans are not corrupted by default. Satan does not rule the earth. He operates within it, under God's permission, as a challenger rather than a conqueror. This makes Islamic theology brutally honest. If you sin, you cannot blame Satan as an overpowering force. You chose. Even Iblis himself admits this on the Day of Judgment, according to the Quran. I had no authority over you except that I invited you, and you responded. This single statement dismantles the idea of Satan as a mastermind pulling strings behind human behavior. Instead, he becomes a mirror, reflecting human weaknesses back to themselves. Yet this clarity introduces its own tension. Why would God allow a being whose sole purpose is to mislead? Is Satan merely a villain, or is he a necessary component of moral reality? Christianity tends to resolve this tension through redemption theology. Satan's existence heightens the need for grace. Islam resolves it through accountability. Satan's presence reveals who humans truly are. These are not small differences. They shape entire civilizations' views of justice, punishment, forgiveness, and the meaning of moral struggle. And we are only beginning to see how deep this divide goes, because the most dangerous differences do not appear in origin stories. They appear in consequences. What happens to humanity because Satan exists? What does temptation mean if humans are already fallen, or if they are born innocent? What does salvation mean if evil is inherited, or if it is chosen anew each time? These questions lead us into the heart of both traditions, where Satan's role expands beyond mythology into psychology, law, and daily life. In Christianity, Satan becomes the accuser, the tempter, the adversary who seeks to devour souls. In Islam, Iblis becomes the deceiver whose greatest weapon is persistence, not power. And soon, we will confront the most unsettling issue of all. Whether Satan is truly the enemy in either system, or whether he functions as something closer to an instrument within a larger divine framework. That question will force us to examine verses most believers avoid, moments where God speaks directly to Satan, and moments where Satan's role seems almost expected. We will come to that shortly. Because what lies ahead challenges not only religious comfort, but the very idea of what it means to be tested, to be free, and to be responsible. Temptation, in both Islam and Christianity, sits at the center of human existence, but it operates under radically different rules. In Christianity, temptation is dangerous precisely because humanity is already wounded. The fall of Adam is not merely a mistake, it is an inheritance. Satan's whispers land on fertile ground because human nature itself is inclined towards sin. This is why Satan can be described as a ruler of the world, a prince of darkness, an adversary whose influence extends far beyond suggestion. The gospel narratives portray him offering kingdoms, power, and shortcuts, even to Jesus himself. Temptation here is external pressure meeting internal weakness. In Islam, the dynamic is reversed. Temptation is external, but weakness is not inherited, it is revealed. Satan does not exploit a fallen nature, he exposes an undecided one. The Quran is relentless in its insistence that Satan cannot force a single act. He can beautify sin, delay repentance, normalize disobedience, but never compel. This reframes temptation not as spiritual warfare against an overwhelming enemy, but as a constant ethical examination. Every moment becomes a test of awareness. This difference has enormous psychological consequences. Christianity often emphasizes rescue and redemption from a state humans cannot escape alone. Islam emphasizes vigilance and responsibility within a state humans were designed to navigate. Both acknowledge struggle, but one sees it as recovery from damage, the other as proof of moral capacity. And this leads us to a question many believers quietly avoid. If Satan is so dangerous in Christianity and so limited in Islam, why does God allow him to continue at all? The answer each tradition offers reveals its deepest assumptions about God. In Christianity, Satan's continued existence is often explained through mystery. God allows evil temporarily to bring about a greater good, ultimately defeated through Christ. Satan becomes a necessary antagonist in a redemptive narrative. His presence amplifies the drama of salvation, making grace meaningful against the backdrop of darkness. But this raises troubling implications. If Satan's rebellion caused immeasurable suffering, why permit it? Why not prevent the fall? Why allow an enemy who deceives billions? These questions have haunted Christian theology for centuries, leading to doctrines of free will, soul-making, and divine foreknowledge. Islam, by contrast, confronts the issue head-on with unsettling simplicity. God allows Satan because Satan asked, and because his existence serves justice. Iblis is not an accident, he is a consequence. His role is to separate the sincere from the insincere, the conscious from the careless. God does not lose control by permitting Satan. On the contrary, Satan's permission reinforces divine sovereignty. Even rebellion operates within God's allowance. This makes Satan's existence less mysterious, but more disturbing. Evil is not a glitch in the system, it is a feature of moral testing. And this leads to a radical conclusion. Without Satan, free will would be incomplete. A choice without alternatives is not a choice. This idea unsettles many believers, because it suggests Satan is not merely an intruder in creation, but part of its moral architecture. We will return to this idea because it carries implications most religious discussions never dare to explore. As judgment approaches in both traditions, Satan's role changes once again. In Christianity, Satan is ultimately defeated, cast into the lake of fire, his power destroyed. Evil is externalized and eliminated. The story ends with restoration, creation healed, temptation erased. In Islam, Satan is not destroyed as a rival, but exposed as a liar. On the day of judgment, Iblis does not fight God. He addresses humanity, he admits his weakness, he confesses that he promised nothing but illusion. This moment is devastating in its honesty. There is no cosmic battle at the end, only accountability. Humans stand alone with their choices. Satan cannot be blamed because he never possessed authority. This ending reinforces Islam's core message. God is not in conflict with Satan. God is above him. Satan's entire career becomes evidence, not opposition. And here lies one of the most provocative interpretations shared quietly by philosophers and theologians across cultures. What if Satan's greatest role is not to oppose God, but to expose humanity? What if he exists to strip away excuses? In this reading, Satan is not God's enemy, but the shadow cast by human freedom. Christianity gestures toward this idea, but never fully embraces it, because its cosmic war framework demands a villain. Islam, however, leaves the door open. Satan is humiliated not by defeat, but by irrelevance. His whispers fail when humans awaken. And this raises a final, deeply unsettling possibility we have been circling all along. Perhaps the most important difference between Islam and Christianity is not what they say about Satan, but what they say about us. Christianity often asks, how can humanity be saved from evil? Islam asks, why does humanity choose it? One sees Satan as a captor, the other as a provocateur. One frames the human story as rescue, the other as examination. And neither perspective is comfortable. Both demand something painful, humility. In Christianity, humility before grace. In Islam, humility before responsibility. But in both, Satan serves as a mirror. He reflects desire, pride, denial, and fear. He is terrifying not because of his power, but because of how easily humans listen. And maybe that is the most uncomfortable truth shared by both traditions, hidden beneath centuries of doctrine. Satan does not need to overpower humanity. Humanity does the work for him. Whether seen as a fallen angel or a failed jinn, Satan's true legacy is not destruction, but revelation. He reveals the cost of freedom, the weight of choice, and the danger of unchecked ego. And when stripped of myth, fire, and horns, what remains is something far more frightening than a demon. A question humanity has never fully answered. If we know what is right, why do we still choose otherwise?